You lived in New Orleans how long now?
I've been back here for a year.
Okay.
Or 13 months.
But you knew it before. Like, you've been here before. So I come down here today. Granted, I don't have a lot of time today, but if you needed to go tour guide, like, could you effectively show me the entirety of New Orleans?
Easy.
Yeah?
Yeah, without question.
Where are we going?
It all starts uptown, where we sit right now. Like, I think you think New Orleans, tourists think French Quarter, Bourbon Street, right? That bar scene down there, maybe the casino. I think uptown, and then maybe to downtown. But then there's so many different parts. I mean, you got the Marigny, you got Bywater, you got Frenchman Street. Like, Frenchman Street's the locals' Bourbon Street. That's where, like, you go for the great music, the local music, authentic jazz, like little nightclubs. I don't really go to the Core that often. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm there very rarely. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different parts, and I think what makes New Orleans unique and cool is that every neighborhood or every part of town has its own flavor, or its own style, or its own little, twist. Where you go some places, some bigger cities, I'm not going to name them so I don't offend anyone, but it's like concrete jungle where each little area still kind of feels the same. New Orleans, you go from one little pocket of a neighborhood to another one, totally different vibes.
This is where I dropped the ball. When I moved to Nashville in 2020, pandemic sets in immediately. So no one's leaving their house. Yeah. So I'm kind of introverted anyway. Like, I don't get out a whole lot anyway. So then you kind of come out of it and everyone's going back out, but I don't. I've been there 4 years now. And yet when I got folks come in town, they'll say, all right, man, I'm coming to Nashville. What do I need to see? And I'll just text someone else. I'll just third party it. Hey, you've lived here a while. It's, bro, I've lived here every bit as long as you. Well, I need recommendations. Where do they need to go? I can't do it. Cannot do it. Cannot walk people through it right now if I needed to. I just give them the normal.
Yeah,
like, go to the Ryman.
You Google what are fun things to do if you visit Nashville.
Yeah, get some hot chicken. I hear it's great.
There's got to be a book for this.
So, as you and I are talking, we just came out of what used to be like a national holiday, man. That first Wednesday in February, that used to be fake sick to get out of work. Make sure you got enough absentee days built up you can get out of school, because National Signing Day is it. That's like Christmas for college football fans. And you still got to be dialed in, but like the normal fan looks and says, isn't 95% of the hay in the barn, especially for the major programs, long before then? So how's recruiting changed? And I'm not just talking about like the tactics you have to use, but the feel of when you sign a class, when you start to go after those guys, the evaluation process, then you got the whole how many are we going to lose in the portal thing. But how different does it feel? Because you've been in the game a while now.
Yeah, the calendar is definitely sped up, right? So like you said, the traditional signing day of February. When I came out of high school, I signed in the first February of 2001, first Wednesday of February 2001. Well, that was the only signing period then. Now, the December signing period, we signed every one of our high school signees then, with the exception of one kid. We signed Cooper Helmke, a local kid who's a field goal kicker and a kickoff guy. Went to St. Martin's here locally. He's the only guy we signed on February signing day. One. And it was a kicker, and I was really just trying to make sure the roster spots worked out for me to have open scholarship for him. So it's definitely changed. It's so sped up that almost it's still a little goofy to kind of come to grips with. We are right now, this past January, when our coaches were on the road and I was allowed to be on the road, which has kind of gotten harder to figure out, guys are doing in-home visits now in January. I'm now allowed to see kids and speak to them in a school. There's no bump rule then. I can take pictures, sit down, have a conversation. I can't do an in-home visit. The staff can, which is a little bit funky. But we're talking to kids in January that are 2026s about setting up their summer official visit. 90% of our recruiting class will be committed by the summer. Okay, and you may lose a commitment, gain a commitment here and there, but most of the work's done by the time we start football season. I think some of it has been built in to protect maybe the high school guys from keeping spots, holding spots, and not losing out to the portal. We're a program where we're still going to recruit and develop high school guys. Like, we're going to sign north of 15 every year, probably closer to 20. The portal, when you replace guys in the portal, you don't go out and go, I need to go sign a high school guy to replace a junior that's a starter that's going to go to an SEC school. Yeah. I can't sign a high school guy to fix that problem. For us, we fix the portal losses with portal additions, and we still recruit and develop the majority of our team in the normal traditional model. But the timeline is so sped up. What used to be covered on TV and social media, that February signing day, now it's kind of like just another day. I mean, it's Groundhog Day, it's whatever. So it's lost its luster for sure. It does not have the same appeal as it used to because there's very little signing going on that day anymore.
So this whole portal thing, which you've probably been asked about a million times this past cycle. I remember I was sitting in my office up in Nashville, and I hear my phone ring, and I pick it up, and like, dude telling me, hey, wait till you see what's about to happen in the portal. So it ends up being Darian Mensah, your quarterback, and he transfers to Duke. Now, I have nothing to do with this program. I've never worked for you. I've never coached for you. This is the first time you and I have ever sat down together. I was irate. I felt emotion about it. I'm not mad the kid's getting paid. I'm just mad like, wait, so it's great for Duke. It's great for him. What does Tulane do? And so I said, I got to go see what Sumrall's saying about this. So, you do your press conferences and you talk to local media and you were like, kind of is what it is, man. Respectfully, not many people nationally knew who he was last year. So we just kind of got to go, we got to go get the next Darian Mensah. We got to promote, we got to develop. I am not a college football head coach. And I think one of the reasons is because I don't know that I could handle it that way. I don't know that I could have you walk in my office and there not be holes in the wall after stuff like that happens. So mentally, how did you process all that?
Yeah, I think I've probably evolved some to get to that point. 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, if something like that would have happened to me, I probably would have punched a hole in the wall. I've learned there's going to be things happening that are outside of your control. Do I want to lose our starters to other schools? No, I want to keep them all.
All right, we've confirmed that.
Yeah,
you do want to keep your starters.
I would like to keep all my starters here if possible. That would be preferred. That'd make having a good team next year be a lot easier.
Right.
But I think we have 3 team rules here. They're really simple, and one of them is no energy vampires, which means no whining, no complaining, no excuses. I can sit here and whine and complain and make excuses about losing Darian or losing our tight end Alex Bauman to Miami or losing our running back Mekhi Hughes to Oregon or losing a backup defensive lineman last year, Parker Peterson to Wisconsin. I mean, we lost guys everywhere, okay? But it's not going to do me any good or do them any good. And Darian and I, the day he called me to tell me he's going, and I said, hey, man, good luck to you. Hope it goes well. And that was it. Like, it's not going to do me any good to get mad at him. It didn't help me. It didn't help him. Do I like it? No. But it doesn't matter if I like it. And I've tweeted out a couple times the Moneyball adapt or die with Billy Beane or Brad Pitt as the character, that GIF or GIF or whatever it's called, because I could sit here and whine and complain about it all day. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help Tulane. It doesn't help our staff. It doesn't help our players. What I really try to spend most of my time is focusing on how do I continue to build the best roster we can, then how do we develop the guys that are here to be the best they can be, and we create value for people in a lot of different ways. Some of them are going to go get drafted. If a guy doesn't see the draft coming from here and they go to the portal, that's their decision. Doesn't mean that's what I want them to do. But for me, I'm so micro-focused on the guys in this building that it doesn't really I don't waste a whole lot of time worrying about what is happening with guys leaving. We have meetings with guys in the front end to try to retain them. Like, I met with Darian well before the transfer portal window opened to try to let him understand, hey, there's value for you here. You're creating value for yourself here. But guys have decisions to make, and going back to it, there's movement with athletes, and I'm not against it. There's payment of players. I love it. Like, I'm for our players getting taken care of. Like, I want them to be able to make money. It's great. I don't think any coach who is against NIL really is for their players, because I think it's great for our guys to be able to be compensated. I do think there should be some different restrictions maybe on the movement. Just like if a coach wants to leave a job, there's a buyout involved.
Yeah.
Well, how about we have maybe a buyout on a player if he decides to leave? So if he wants to transfer up, then they have to monetarily pay us to get him out of the deal.
I mean, look, I was talking to someone the other day, and they presented that concept. I've never talked about it on the show, but like that concept, if you're coaching at Tulane right now, you go through the process of evaluating, recruiting, landing, and developing a guy, and then someone else reaps the benefit. All right? That sucks, but it is what it is. But then this guy pitches to me, hey, what about this concept? What if Tulane loses a guy to the University of Oregon or loses a guy to Penn State, and then there is a fee that comes down in exchange for that talent going up? And I sat there with my jaw on the ground, and I said, it sounds illegal given the current legal structure. However, if we just get all lawyers out of the room for a second, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So I don't know what kind of lobby you have to hit up to make that happen. But
I think to get there, you're probably going to we're going to cross the path of employment status at some point, right? Like I think, who knows what the next year, 3 years, 5 years holds. But the employment status conversation being out there and all those different things that could be coming, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Are you like me where you always get nervous when the conversation starts going that way? Not because you're scared of what your opinion is, you're scared you'll piss someone off, but you know that there are like legal understandings of things you don't have. I don't have a law degree, you don't have a law degree, and you're almost like, ooh.
Well, fortunately for me, so the 3 guys that started our collective are lawyers.
That's good.
Okay. One of them had left to go to work at another university, and I hired him back to be on my staff. His name's Kelly Camarda. He played baseball here in the 90s. Kelly's a lawyer. Kelly was one of the founders of our collective. He had left to go to a different university, and I just hired him back. He's on my staff. He handles all of the stuff we do financially here, so I'm not involved maybe to the degree that it kind of protects me, and I get to be a football coach.
Hey!
I'm not the guy going, hey, here's the deal.
Oh, what a concept.
And so where I get enough good advice, when I don't know something, I'll ask somebody that probably should or could. And Kelly and some legal guys that I trust, I reach out to and go, hey, where do you think this could go? To try to be educated. I think now the role of a head football coach, I have to be able to go in our defensive staff room and understand when we're playing match cover 3, what that looks like holistically. And I have to understand offensively, like when we run split zone, who we're working to on combination blocks and different things. And especially, I got to understand what our punt protection is and what our punt coverage is, right? And as a head coach, I think you have to understand a lot more than just that now. You have to really be able to navigate NIL rev share, the legal implications, roster management stuff that's coming with going down to 105. Like there's so many different things that have nothing to do with running a football play that you have to educate yourself on or get people around you that can help you learn. And I'm not a legal guy. I'm not an expert in that field, but I think I know enough now to be dangerous because I think we've studied it all to where we can at least be educated and informed in our opinions.
But that's what I think about a lot. I think about someone in your position, the head coach's chair. Any major level of football right now. I think about the guy in the head coach's chair, and you came up specializing on one side of the ball, most likely. And so you get in the head coach's chair because you were so good in that position. And normally when people say you were so good in that position, they're talking tactical. They're talking X's and O's. They're talking game planning, strategy implementation, play calling. Then you get in the head coach's chair, and there are these million different things buzzing around your head, sometimes the last of which is football. And I sit there from afar and I think, how do you find time to keep sharpening from the football perspective? And I ask a lot of guys that, and they say, kind of have to bite the bullet on that a little bit. And then other guys say what you just said, which is, I've got to fill the building with so many people that I trust them to be able to hand it off to. Because like, if I walk in your office right over here and I walk in that back room on that grease board, there are X's and O's on that grease board.
Oh yeah, right now. Yeah.
I mean, like that's where your mind's got to be.
Yeah, my mind's everywhere. And so in my day-to-day, I think what part of the year am I in could probably tell you a little bit more about where my mind is at. I think you have to hire great people and let them do their job. That's coaches, that's support staff, that's the whole deal. But as a head coach, I kid around with our football coaches all the time. Like, I'm a football expert that does operations and roster management. Like I know a lot. I know way more about X's and O's than a normal operations or roster management person would. But I think you have to be able to kind of embrace all areas of the job. You can get consumed with maybe trying to control everything and that gets a little haywire, I think. I feel like what we've got here that's special is, man, I've got a great staff, like a phenomenal staff. I get a ton of credit when things go well, and I get blamed when it goes bad, and I'm comfortable with whatever comes my way. But my staff here, like football, support staff, the job they do to really allow me to do my job really well and kind of plug in for a few minutes and kind of maybe get in the weeds and then get out, and get in the weeds on something else and then get out. I walk into a lot of meetings and throw my insight in and say, hey, I want y'all to look at this, this, and this. And I may watch a little bit with them, and then I'll walk out and let people do their jobs really well because I hired all those people to do a job. And so I do think you have to be educated. Like I think it's not okay. We talk a lot in our program. I define character as the be, know, do model, which know is knowledge or competence, do is actions and behaviors. A combination of what you know and what you do, that's who you are. Well, it's not okay to say, well, I don't know. You're a Division I head football coach. You need to find out. You need to know. So you have to know what's going on in the real world. You also have to do the right things. You got to make good decisions that take care of your players and your staff and the people in the program the right way. And that's what character is. But I think you have to be educated. It's not okay to be incompetent. You have to learn. And it's okay to say, I don't know about this now, but then you better dive in the weeds and go find out.
I've noticed a lot of guys when they get their first head coaching job, but this could be applied just as much to the regular business world or whatnot. You'll read autobiographies of these guys 30 years down the road, and they'll say, when I first got the job, man, I felt such imposter syndrome. I felt like I've been given the job head coach, and everyone's calling me sir, and I get to sit in the head chair, and I get to run the meetings, but I knew deep down like there was so much I still didn't know. That's inevitable. Like, that's life. So no one's ever going to know everything at any point in their career. Obviously, statistically, you're at your most vulnerable the younger you are or the fresher you are as a head coach. How much of that stuff, when it first came time for you to assume the role of head coach, was just a bunch of I don't knows, let me go learn as quick as I can?
I tried to study everybody I've ever been around. Head coaches and other coaches that weren't head coaches, but I thought were great leaders. And really, when I took the job at Troy after the 2021 season, being at Kentucky for 3 years, I asked Mark Stoops, hey, give me 2 or 3 things I need to know right out of the gate. Like, if tell yourself something 10 years ago that you didn't know. And Mark gave me some great advice. A lot of it was about staff. I'll never forget, Mark told me, hey, don't worry about how fast you hire your staff.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. Like, you don't get an award for getting it done really quick. So I didn't hire my first new hires at Troy as assistant coaches until I was on the job for 2 weeks. And I hired my offensive coordinator and my defensive coordinator the same day. But it was 2 weeks after I took the job. And so Mark helped me there. The other thing he told me that I really took with me, he said, you can't hire all your friends. Like, you're going to know more people that are your friends than you can hire. And to be quite honest, I probably took it a step further. I didn't hire many of my friends. I might not have hired anybody that would probably consider me a friend because I felt like I needed to hire who was going to help do the job the best. And so Mark was very helpful. Neil Brown is a dear friend. I learned so much working for Neil about structure, organization. Like, Neil had every second of the day planned out. I mean, it was like I was blown away with his detail and planning and just structure that I learned a lot from. So I think different people, and then other head coaches I hadn't worked for, like Eli Drinkowitz, just a little bit ahead of me maybe in the progression of being a head coach. He's been a great friend. He gave me a great tidbit on when I first took the job at Troy. I said, hey, give me one thing you would do. And he goes, hey, put full buyouts in your head coach's contracts for the first 6 months. So if anybody, this is a great story. You can air this and so Drake's at Missouri. I take the job at Troy and I said, hey, give me one thing I should do. And he goes, put full buyouts for your coaches for 6 months in their contracts till June. So that way, if anybody tries to poach anybody on your staff, from a higher level, they have to pay a buyout. So we do it. I'm like, that's a great idea. It makes sense. I don't want to have full buyouts in the coaches forever, but the first little block when we get the staff together, that's fair and I think reasonable. So we do that. Well, About 2 months later, Drink calls me and he goes, "Hey,
No.
did you put full buyouts in those contracts?" And I said, "Yeah, why? What's up?" And he was like, "I want to hire Al Pogue. Al was the corners coach. Al's now with Drink at Missouri." but Missouri had to pay a buyout. So therefore, at Troy, we got new headsets that year for Al. We made a trade for Al and some new headsets and a new DB coach. But I take advice from everybody. Like, I think you have to be a constant learner. And people that have been in the experience that you're in you can glean something from them if you're selfless enough and maybe not prideful to go, "Hey, pick up the phone and go, hey, what would you do? What did you do? What did you not know?" And I have like a notebook full of stuff that I wrote down from people that have been in that chair that I could maybe use some of their wisdom on.
When you got headsets on every Saturday, they always have lettering on them. No one ever knows what it means. Did you ever just consider throwing an ELY on the side of that, where one guy out there would know why these headsets say ELI or EL? What do you spell Eli? ELI, and then the rest of the country just wonders, I wonder what company ELI is.
I haven't thought about that.
Would have been a good move.
I've not thought about what's on the headset.
Yeah. Eli Memorial headsets.
That's a question my brother would ask. My brother. He would go, "Hey, what's the headset deal?" Like he would ask.
Yeah. What's Eli?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's that company? You were an assistant coach for a long time. I assume you always aspired to be a head coach. You're here now. When you look around a room, bunch of other assistants in there, they now work for you at Troy and at Tulane. How quickly can you pick out which ones you think will be head coaches down the road?
Yeah. I think the most important component to being a head coach is just being a leader. And so while, like we talked, you do have to understand the game. You can't get to the seat of being a head coach and not know the game. But leadership's the most important thing. I think I love the quote from Coach Saban about, like, if you want to be liked, don't be a leader, go sell ice cream. Right? Like, you have to make tough decisions that are for the greater good, and but do it with tact and class and grace that people understand, like, hey, this is not against anyone, this is for everyone. And that's the hardest thing, I think, about the job. So you have to be able to make those decisions and do the right thing, maybe in tough moments. I didn't always know I wanted to be a coach, and there's some days you may ask me, I say I would be okay not being a head coach. I love what I do. The thing I love about what I do now is I get to set the culture of the entire program. And so, like, when you walk around our building and you interact with our team, man, we're going to have positive energy. Like, our guys got great attitudes. Like, we may have bad moments, but we don't have any bad days. We got life pretty damn good. You know what I mean? Like, we got a lot of positive things going for us. And so that's probably the most fun thing you get to do as a head coach is, like, the environment, the culture, the vibe in the building. I set that. Like, that starts with me. If I'm upbeat and positive, everybody else is going to feed off that. If I got my dauber down and I walk around like Eeyore, everybody else is going to probably do that too. And so that's the thing I think you have to look at when you're maybe looking at assistants and going, could this guy be in that chair? Is how do they carry themselves? How do they treat other people? How do they engage with other people? Not everybody wants to be a head coach, and everybody's going to be a head coach. And some guys are great play callers that maybe don't fit the head coach component because they're just in the weeds on dialing up plays, but there's so much more that goes into it. I think the number one thing about leading a program is you have to understand it's about humans over hardware. Like, I use that term a lot. It's about people, not buildings. I don't care. You give me the best people from a talent and a character standpoint. I don't care if our offices are in trailers. We'll win a lot of games. You give me the best building in the world and the wrong people in it, we're going to get our butts kicked. And so I think it's about people. It's about relationships. It's about understanding what makes people tick, what's their why, and how to get them to be their best.
What about the dynamic? So everyone loves, from the outside looking in, to think of a coaching staff as just completely harmonious. Everyone loves each other. Everyone's going out for drinks after work. And yet, when we get to be on our side of the fence in this business, you find out some of these dudes can't stand each other outside of work, but professionally, they know the organization's at their best when both of them are in the building and both of them are in the room. And for whatever reason, you got really good organizational chemistry, even though you may not be working with dudes who, you really love and aspire to hang out with. I know that's the case in my business. I know that's the case in your business. You've been on a number of staffs now. How often have you seen that dynamic of, I got dudes I don't really like that much in this room, but man, I respect the heck out of his work ethic.
Yeah, when I talk about people that I took things from, Bronco Mendenhall, when I was at Troy, Bronco and I talked, and Bronco said, man, at the end of the day, make sure you hire good people. And so that doesn't mean they all have to be alike. Somebody might like to drink water, one guy might like to drink beer, one guy might like to drink bourbon. They're all going to have different tastes. But hire good people, quality people of character. Usually good people can find common ground. Doesn't mean they're going to be the same. Like I said, some guys may want to go play golf after work, and some guys may want to go watch your kids play sports. Everybody's different. But I think you do have to hire good people. And if you hire good people, like who they are at their core, they're going to work well together. There's going to be disagreement. If we all agree all the time in every meeting, we have a problem.
Right.
Like I tell our staff all the time, like be original in your thought, don't be a yes man. So I think there's always some conflict that's good and needed for growth. But when you walk out of a meeting, everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody's got to pull the rope the same direction. One of my favorite books is Legacy. That's about the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. And they got a rule on there, one of their team rules, and I don't know if I can say this or it's probably not politically correct, but it's no dickheads allowed. And that's about their locker room. No dickheads allowed. Hire good people. Be around good people. Get people in your organization that aren't jerks, that are going to treat people the right way. I can teach a guy what he needs to know football-wise if he's deficient in something. I can't change a guy's heart. And so I want good people in the building because that's going to trickle into our locker room. Our players will feed off that too. And that matters, man. I think that gets lost so often professionally is there is a threshold. You have to be good enough at your job to be at this level. Same as a player in the recruiting game. I'm not going to recruit a player unless he meets a certain threshold of talent. But I showed our team a clip the other day of Peyton Manning talking about Tony Dungy's teams in Indianapolis. And they were talking about character. Well, those teams in Indianapolis, Peyton was like, guys that weren't high character, they didn't stay very long because they didn't last. They didn't meet the standard. So I think it's about hiring good people. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be times that guys butt heads, but you have to be able to, understand that everybody's in it for the same goal. It's for the greater good.
When you're looking at a guy to add to your staff, you want to vet them as much as you can. So I assume you're looking them in the eye, you're meeting with them, you're trying to test as much of their background as possible. What does it take for you to be sold that a guy is wired right from a character standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the two things, if it's an external hire, that's very different, right? If it's internal hire, I've seen the guy work, you're promoted, let's go. Externally, I talk to a lot of people on a job before making a hire. So if I've got a job open, I don't usually just talk to one guy and it's done. I talk to 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 guys on a Zoom to just kind of figure out, does this guy know what he's doing? Do I think he'd fit? And then I probably call more people that have worked with somebody if I haven't worked with them to find out about the person. I care about the football component, but I think I can usually decipher that on an interview and asking them to teach me. Hey, day one install, teach me what you would teach. But, man, when I'm hiring somebody, I'll wear out the phone calling everybody that's been around them that I trust and just say, hey, good staff guy, does he treat his family the right way, all those things, so that I have as good of a pulse of who is the person coming in. That part I'm very, very meticulous on, just background on who the person is.
Does the word get out pretty quick? If a guy's not made of the right stuff, I assume folks are pretty straightforward when they're giving you off the record feedback, and word gets out pretty quick on guys.
Really quick, really easy. It's easy to see, and two, most of the time people will be pretty honest with you. I can also tell when somebody's not going all in to help a guy, but they're not trying to hurt a guy. You can sense if there's real, genuine, authentic enthusiasm about who the guy is or not.
Yeah, if he's giving you a bunch of, hey, he means well.
He's pretty good.
He tries.
You know? Yeah, he does an okay job.
Right.
It's like
could be worse.
Yeah, it's like saying about a girl growing, oh, she's sweet. Well,
she's got a good personality.
Yeah, God bless her. Like that means she's not very pretty.
Yeah. So the whole staff dynamic, man, it's really, it's kind of to me parallel to your roster, because the better you do, if you're the head coach at Tulane, the more attention you're going to get from some places that have much bigger salary pool and budget and whatnot than you have here. And this is a great place to be at this level. Mm-hmm. But there's also the reality of the bigger structure of college football. So everybody has to be aware of this, but I think maybe you have to be hyper aware of every time we're winning a game, every time we're moving the needle, there are dozens and dozens of eyeballs on us. Not fans, but people up the ladder who may be looking to take players, looking to take coaches. So you always hear the story about how every AD or every head coach, they've always got that top drawer, they always got backup options ready. How prepared do you think you are at any given point to just suffer attrition on the roster or attrition on the coaching staff?
They're kind of different. The roster component's probably harder because, like you said earlier, you may develop a player who is an unknown and you don't foresee that player's not going to be on your roster in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then how do you make up for going and getting a starter? I think as a coach, you're a little more dialed in on like coaches are going to have opportunities. I'm for everybody in our building staff-wise to have professional development and growth and to be able to create opportunities for themselves career-wise. And so I think you probably keep a little bit closer tabs on the staff stuff and maybe backfilling certain jobs. I personally love to promote from within. Like that's something, it makes maybe the systems, the carryover, those transitions really, really smooth. There's something nice about adding some external guys here and there too that can give you a different set of lens perspective on maybe how they see something. But there's a lot to, hey, there's a standard here. This is how we do things. It's not always what we do, but how we do it matters just as much. Because what you do, you evolve and adapt every year. Like we may play one coverage one year and play it a little less the next because we have to evolve on who our people are or what works. But I think how you do things matters. And there's a rhythm and I call it battle rhythms. There's battle rhythms to everything we do. And the more you know about our battle rhythms, the easier it is to kind of just hit it and go. But you have to always be ready for attrition. And that comes. Success gets a lot of attention for individuals. And I'm for our players. I hope most of them go to the NFL instead of transferring. But I'm for our staff getting opportunities too. We do have guys that, like you asked earlier about head coaches. We got guys that are on the staff that are going to be head football coaches. I have zero doubt. Like there's several guys currently on our staff that will be very successful head football coaches at the right time.
You also never know, because I think my mind's weird. I think in terms of like future documentaries. So at any given point, if I'm watching a football team or if I'm watching whatever, I'm always thinking about 30 years down the road. There could be something historic happening right in front of your eyes. You just don't know it because you're in the moment. But I picture like a documentary 30 years down the road. To draw it back to your perspective, you could have someone saying, boy, that Tulane staff in 2025, most of America didn't know it. But this dude was on it, that dude was on it, this girl worked there, that guy worked there. And at any given point, if you're doing it the right way and you're staffing the right way, you could have a building of future stars walking around that are already doing it because you see it. But then who knows, man? Everybody could just mushroom cloud in terms of personal profile down the road.
It's amazing. I've seen it once early in my career. So I was at the University of San Diego. After I graduated at Kentucky, I went to USD. At the time, I didn't know the difference between San Diego and San Francisco. I mean, I'm from the Southeast. I moved to San Diego, and I'm like, I might be here a year or two. I ended up being there for 5. Well, Jim Harbaugh had previously been the head coach, and he had gone to Stanford. Ron Carriger was running backs coach at Kentucky, and Ron leaves to go take the head job at USD. And so I go with him. And, on that staff, Dave Adolph, who's deceased, but Dave was, he was an honorary captain before he passed for Ohio State and Michigan in that game for both teams. Like, that tells you a little bit about Dave. he was Marty Schottenheimer's defensive coordinator for a long time. But on that staff, prior to my time there, you had a guy named David Shaw, and you had Johnny Morton, who Johnny's now the OC in Detroit. You had a lot of guys that had been all over. Then I was there. We had Tanner Engstrand, who's now the OC for the Jets, that was in Detroit last year. Jimmy Doherty, who just got promoted to be the OC at Washington. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I remember we were all working in a trailer, and there was like rats running around and stuff. It was crazy. In the defensive trailer, it was nasty. But there's guys that kind of been fun to see those guys elevate and grow their careers. It's always neat to see guys you've come up with and where they've gone. For me personally, like I mentioned Eli Drinkwitz and Dan Lanning. I remember Eli Drinkwitz's first job. He was at a full-time job. He was at Arkansas State, and I was an assistant here. And we went to dinner in Mobile, and it's been 10 years ago. And like he had never been on the road recruiting until that spring, and because he had been a high school coach and then an analyst and whatever. And then Dan Lanning, like I remember kind of tracking. Dan and I were crossing paths, and he went to Alabama, went to Memphis, was at Arizona State, went to Memphis with Norvell and those guys, and kind of seeing guys come up through this is really a lot of fun to see guys grow, especially the ones that are great people. That's a lot of fun to watch.
How crazy is it when you are living the life you're living? So, you know Dan Lanning well before 98% of the public knows him. Well, now Lanning's a rock star up there in Eugene, and he's telling his life story, and everyone's like, oh my goodness. He worked where? He made how much?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you knew it the whole time, and you're like, I've heard this story before. I've watched this story before. I got a story of my own if you people want to hear about it.
Well, no, Dan's story is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And he's got such a cool background and a great personality and treats people so well. Me and him had a couple of head-to-head recruiting battles when I was at Troy and he was at Memphis, and then I went to Ole Miss and he went to Georgia. And then I was at Kentucky and he was at Georgia, and we would run at each other all the time on the recruiting trail. But he was always one of those guys that when we would interact, I felt like, all right, this is my kind of guy. This kind of guy I'd be cool being around every day. And never worked with him, but have always kept in great touch. When we were in the SEC, we would talk a ton. The weeks we played each other, we wouldn't talk, but we'd keep in great touch, and still to this day. And so very proud of him, and so cool to see somebody who's sacrificed so much and had people around him make sacrifices to provide him with the opportunity to do what he's doing, and then the way he's killing it's been fun to see.
When you look at the passion portion of what you do for a living, you have it yourself, you demand it from the people in your building. If I were to play a hypothetical out, let's say you got all the knowledge that you've acquired. You've got your natural God-given ability to do this for a living. You get to keep all that. But I take the passion from you. I take the love of coaching football, the love of the game from you. But you get to keep all the rest of the stuff. How long could you fake it? How long could you hollow kind of ride a wave?
I don't think I could fake it. My wife would tell you my greatest strength's my greatest weakness. I'm brutally honest to the core. Like people ask me like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm going to tell you what I think. Like, I'm not going to like, I think it's okay. And like, if the pot roast stinks, I'm going to tell you it stinks. I can't imagine not being passionate about what I do. Like, I love it. Like, I wake up every day, and I told our team this the other day, when my alarm clock goes off every day at 4:44 a.m. and my feet hit the floor, I'm like, man, this is awesome. I get to go to work today. Like, how cool is, like, they're paying me to be a football coach. This is the best thing ever. If I ever lose that, I'll go do something else. And that's the thing, like, kind of going back to the portal and NIL, I'm not going to let the external factors that maybe make our job more chaotic still the joy in the job. The joy in the job for me is still about developing people and players to be their best every day. And so I'm so passionate about that. I said this in my introductory press conference, and I tell our staff this all the time. If you're not, the old quote, I think it might have been Vince Lombardi, but if you're not fired with enthusiasm, you're going to get fired with enthusiasm. Like, you have to be passionate about what you do. I don't care if you're a football coach, if you're washing cars, if you're a school teacher, whatever. Man, you got to be fired up about what you do. And if you don't, go do something else. Like, that stinks. That's not a life to live, man. And so I can't imagine not loving this. I wake up every day fired up about getting to go to work.
You ever run into folks in this business that do not love it? Or is it such a competitive business that you can't make it if you don't love it?
I think if you want to be elite, you got to love it. I think there's probably people that are mediocre that survive and hang on and can kind of blend in. But if you want to be a high achiever, there's only one way to that path, and it's doing the things that get you there. And I think, conversely, high achievers want to be around high achievers. Like motivated people want to be around motivated people. When I'm around somebody that's comfortable with mediocrity, it kind of makes me nauseous. Like I get a little uncomfortable. Like it makes me like you talk about punching a hole in a wall. That'll make me punch a hole in a wall. Like do things great. Do an exceptional job at whatever your job is. There's probably a lot of people out there that are okay being just good enough, but that's something that would really give me a problem being around daily.
I tell this story on our show sometimes, but the thing that freaked me out the most, but it also opened my eyes a lot, was I didn't get right into sports media. I did a bunch of manual labor stuff. Like I worked real jobs that sucked. So, 10, 15 years ago, I finally get a little bit of a break, and you go to these games and you walk in these press boxes and you assume everyone feels the same way you do at 4:44 in the morning, feet hit the ground. I get to cover sports for a living. That's wild. Like they're going to pay me money to go to a football game today. Well, it wasn't like that. And I walked through that press box, and you're looking around, and there's some folks there who love it. Do not get me wrong, but there are a lot of folks who are just there because I got to be there, which dumbfounded me. Because I'm so wide-eyed. I'm thinking this is like a fairy tale world for people. Well, it wasn't. But it did show me that if you have that kind of passion, but it's just channeled over here into this business, you can do some special things. And then, of course, you got to get your breaks and whatnot, and people have to believe in you. But I think sometimes it helps if you've done stuff you hate for a living. That's the perspective that really lets you know at 4:44 in the morning when you're getting to do what you love for a living. Like that stuff doesn't make sense to a lot of people because a lot of people are not doing what they love.
That's right.
And so it really helps to hear someone talk about it from the perspective of, hey, I am doing something I love. So you can either envy me or you can go find this version for yourself. That's probably the better course of action.
Everybody has a calling, right? Like there's something for everybody. And to your point, like growing up, to buy my first car was a white Ford Bronco, like OJ drove.
Yeah, really popular in the 90s. Not so popular now.
Yeah, and so that was my first vehicle as a high schooler. And I cut grass to pay for it. And I like cutting grass. I don't love cutting grass. Like, I'll do it. It's not like I want to go cut a bunch of yards.
But you're mediocre at grass cutting.
Yeah, I'm average at it. It's not my expertise. And so I'll get the job done. But no, I think doing things that get you to where you are, make you even have more of an appreciation for what you do get to do day in, day out.
So let me ask you this. All right, so let's say you're the same person. I'm not wiping your memory clean or anything, but for some reason a voice came from above you and said, no football, no working professionally in football for the rest of your life. You're free to go do whatever you want to do. Where are you headed?
I'd probably go to like the financial world.
Yeah?
So I got my undergraduate degree in business finance at the University of Kentucky. If I wasn't coaching now, it's probably a little too late to do this, but like to me, the competitive nature of Wall Street, the stock market, the hustle, the grind, I really enjoy the grind of things. Like I like the early morning. I like the outworking people. I like and by outworking people, I'm not always talking about hours. I think being strategically efficient in how you do things is a big part of that. But like the competitive nature, I like the world where there's a winner and a loser. Like I enjoy that. Like I every day we work, there's not always a scoreboard on in everything we do, but we keep score in everything we do in our workouts. Like our off-season match drills, there's a score for everything. And so I would want to be a part of something that was very competitive in nature, which I've always felt like Wall Street, that environment was a go-getter environment.
Dude, the movies are great.
Yeah,
I've never been to
Wolf of Wall Street.
The movies are great.
Yeah, they're entertaining for sure.
As specific as you can get on this stuff, one of the fun things we always do anytime I'm talking to coaches is before the cameras are rolling, coaches have a million stories. Understandably, you cannot tell most of them on air.
Can't tell a lot of them. Yeah.
If you were to like If it was like a government file and all the names are redacted and the places are redacted, having been in the business as long as you have, generically speaking, what's some of the wildest stuff that you've experienced or you've been around that made you go, dude, if the public could see this, it would blow their mind?
Man, I would say, probably for me, when I was an assistant coach in the SEC, pre-NIL.
Oh, man. This is already a good story.
The night before sign day, and that was like being in a boiler room, and then the night before it goes dead, like 3 or 4 days before sign day, of staking out in front of a kid's house to be the last guy that could go in and see him and his mom before they sign in 5 days, and kind of trying to box another staff out, and sit in the home till 11:59 p.m. and walk out at midnight so they can't walk in.
People don't even know. Like, there are a lot of young people who watch this show. So, like, someone who's in high school right now, what you're talking about is not that long ago.
No,
it's less than 10 years ago.
It's 2019.
Yes, it's like less than 10 years ago.
Just a few years ago.
I don't want people to just overlook what you said. So the Sunday, I think it was like the Sunday night before signing day at 11:59. That's when it's going dead.
Yeah,
right?
So before it'd go dead, it would always go dead that Monday. We weren't allowed to be off campus on that Sunday, but we could be this Saturday.
Yeah.
I can't remember all the dates and rules. We'd always clear this through compliance, of course.
Sure.
But I will give you one name. Like, Dave Aranda was defensive coordinator at LSU, and I was at Ole Miss, and we were like, he pulls up right before me to go in a house of a linebacker, and I pull up right behind him, and he I don't know, I'm like, what is Dave doing there? Like, he's in there forever. I'm just waiting for him to walk out so I can walk in. And then, neither one of us signed the kid because I think somebody else had a bigger checkbook than both of us. And that was before NIL.
They also ran it through compliance, though.
Yeah, they ran it all through the checkbook part of it. but I think the recruiting stuff back then, when there was no NIL that was allowed and all that stuff, and there was stuff going on, obviously. Everybody knows that there's been plenty of things go on. As a coach, you were never really, or at least I wasn't. I was never in the middle of that component, but I was like, you have to be naive to not know it's going on. Like, you have to be an idiot to go, oh, no, there aren't any players getting paid. Like, come on.
Yeah. I used to remember, I would listen to like sports talk radio or look at message boards or whatnot, and there would always be this unspoken or unknown but understood aspect that, everyone knows this is happening. But I remember having it explained to me the first time by some high school coaches who were kind of aware of the way the game was played, and they said, because I was talking to them like I knew what I was talking about, and I knew nothing more than the internet had taught me, and they said, you keep talking about these coaches. They said, the coaches are the last ones. Plausible deniability is important. The coaches are the last ones to ever know how that's working. Now, you got Jimmy who owns a tire shop down here. That's the one you want to go talk to. You got Fred who owns a couple of banks. That's the one you want to go talk to. And I was like, oh, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the coaches are never really, like, the coaches weren't involved. You're still good old-fashioned recruiting, trying to be the last guy in the house. But you knew there was some other stuff going on that was outside of your domain, and you didn't know who it was or how it was done, and I didn't want to know. You were just like, I'm just trying to make sure the kid feels good about our situation. But those recruiting things were always. I got 100 of those stories of the final hour, and I've got a few of them on the other side where we've been successful. There was one of the ones that I was a part of that was really good is at Kentucky. Before my last season there, a young man from Wayne County, Georgia, which is South Georgia. I just coached Jamin Davis, who was a first-round pick in Washington. I think he was like the 19th pick of the draft. And Jamin was from Long County, Georgia. And right next to Long County is Wayne County, Georgia. One stoplight type town, right? Smaller town. Well, Trevin Wallace was a recruit from Wayne County, and it was Auburn and kind of us at Kentucky were sort of the two, And then, like, it felt like late. Maybe Georgia tried to get in, and we held on for dear life and signed him. And it was one of those positive recruiting wins where you're like, you just sit in your office for a couple hours, like, I'm not sure how he just got that done. But we got it done. Like, he's our team. And then his freshman year, we played Florida at home. I think we won by 3 points. We block a field goal. He catches it. Well, he's a high school running back, and he takes the blocked field goal 70 yards to the house to win the game as a true freshman. And so you're part of all the stories where you just know what it took to get a guy there, and then to see what he does is really always fun.
But a lot of that was relationship based. Ton of it was relationship based. And nowadays, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but there's the whole other sort of transactional element that gets baked in. Do you miss the way it was, or do you prefer the way it is?
Yeah, I still make it relational because I don't get involved on the financial. We provide financial opportunities for guys that are here. And those are a part of conversations during recruiting. They're not a part of my conversations in recruiting. So the way we've structured it, and I don't care if I'm coaching high school football, college football, pro football, I want to be a football coach.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in being the salary cap guy. And so does that mean I'm naive to what we're doing financially? No, I have an idea, and I'm involved. And I got a pretty good pulse of where we are. How much money do we have to work with, and what can we spend on each room, and those sort of things. But for me, man, I'm there to serve the player. I'm there to develop the player. Like our jobs are to serve and develop. Well, I can't serve and develop if my primary relationship with a player is about the transaction it took to get them there. So my primary relationship with the player is about what we're going to do to help them grow. And I don't, in the recruiting process, have conversations about the financials. So that allows me to be the coach. And so there are some transactional components that I think have made some of the things, more challenging. But I've tried to make sure that's not the lane I'm living in, to be honest. I've tried to maybe exclude myself from that so I can not have to be somebody different than who I am with the guys on our team.
Yeah, but that's also that's a preference on your part.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's. I think a lot of people, if they turn this on in the middle of us talking, they heard you say that. Some of them would just call BS on it. Other ones would say, "What does he? Does he want us to think he's stupid? Does he want us to think he's unaware of what's happening?" And what you're saying is, you know full well it's happening. You've actually structured so that it can happen over here in this room. Because when we're in this room, I want it to be about this, and not that, because it kind of poisons the well of what you want to be about.
I want to walk into our team meeting room and nobody in that meeting room think, well, coach,
he didn't pay me.
He paid that guy this and this guy that. Well, I didn't pay anybody anything. I'm not sitting down doing any, do I know what's going on? Yes. But I don't make the deal. I don't sit there and do those things because for me, it doesn't allow me to be the best I can for the player or for the team if I'm in the weeds on trying to be a general manager salary cap guy. I've got people that do that. I know what we're doing in that area, but I draw a line where I'm like, hey, if the guy goes, hey, we got to go further to get that guy. Okay, let him walk. I'm good. We'll find another player. Usually, in the way we recruit too, if in the first conversation or if early in the first conversation, it turns to compensation right out of the gate, no different than when coaches.
Yep.
If a coach early in the first conversation is like, hey, what's the job pay? Hey, bud, you're not the right dude for the job.
Yep.
Players, same deal. I don't care if I was at a school that's got the full rev share of $16 million or $15 million for football out of the $20 million pot. $15 million. If the first question is, what's that pay? Okay, do you love what football can do for you, or do you love football? Because if you love football, then it's going to continue to do great things for you. But if you love what it can do for you right now and you're just trying to, it's only about the short-term check, we're probably not going very far.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to kind of gauge what's a guy about in regards to his questioning or what he's interested in the recruiting process.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, the psychology of game day itself. For the team, yeah. but I'm talking about you specifically. Like, the level of focus that you have, because it's crazy that you work year round on this stuff, and it comes down to 12 Saturdays, really.
Yeah.
And it's just like a small chunk of time on those 12 Saturdays, and everything's poured into that all year. Describe to someone who's never worn a headset, walked on the sideline before, the level of razor focus that you have play to play in a football game, to the point where a lot of you guys can get in a post-game press conference and recite play after play after play, what happened, what you saw, why it went this way, why it didn't work that way. Like, what is that level of focus like to be able to get to that point?
Yeah, I think as a head coach, it's different. You know, to your point earlier, when you're coming up on one side of the ball, you're so just dialed in on that phase. As a head coach, I think that's where you have to be nuanced and understand the ebbs and flows of the game, clock management, timeouts, play sequencing, when you're going to go for it on fourth down, making sure you do a good job on the headset communicating to your offensive coordinator, hey, if it's 4th and 3 here, it's a go. Like ahead of the drive, so they know how to play sequence. Once we get to this yard line, at 4th and this, it's a go. And so the guys, so I think the in-game communication, so much of it really happens before the game.
Right.
Like, to be honest with you, on game day, my job is to make sure we keep the train on tracks a little bit. Like we've rehearsed, discussed, and gone through it enough times that everybody kind of knows what we're going to do. I tell our staff, our team, like on our Thursday staff meeting, we always talk, you know, win the toss, lose the toss, defer, all that stuff. We talk wind, weather, all that stuff. We talk, if we're on the road, what's the visiting locker room look like? I don't want to, like, I show it to the team. I don't want to walk in and be like, oh, the locker room's small. There's only 3 places to use the bathroom. If we know that, I tell the team before we get there. So they're not like, oh, this bathroom situation sucks. Hey, guys, we know the bathroom situation is going to suck today. Like, just so there's already, we know what's coming. So I try to, control and maybe prepare for as much of those things as possible. But the in-game decisions, so much of that's already discussed and planned that every now and then you have something to. But like this year, we had one game that almost could have come down to, hey, do you go for 2 or do you not? And our staff do. That game, I was going to make this decision. Well, the next game, it may be a different decision based upon who we're playing, where we're playing, the elements, whatever. One game I may go for 2 to win at the end. One game I might not, based upon all those factors.
All right, I'll get you out here on this. Spring, as you and I are talking, has not begun yet. You're focused on everything in spring. What's like one thing, if you just circle it with red Sharpie, 1 or 2 things that are really pivotal for this year's team to come together?
Well, I think, we lost a lot. Like our roster, our attrition, we got 2 returning offensive starters. All right. We got 3 or 4 on defense returning starters. So for me, it's so much about individual player development through the spring. What guys can we rely on and depend on? Which guys are going to consistently perform at a high level? And then within that, where do we go? Like, we've had a style of play, but your style of play constantly has to evolve around who are your players. Like I go back to my first year at Troy in 2022. I knew we weren't going to be great on offense. I watched this practice all spring. I'm like, all right, this could be a tough offensive year probably. So that year we won games like 10-6 and 10-9, and we won 12 games doing it that way. Well, the next year at Troy, we won some games scoring 40 points. Last year, it was kind of a little bit of both here. We played decent defense at times. We had decent offense at times. We're probably a little bit ahead of the curve on defense from where we were a year ago this time. When I got here a year ago this time, man, the cupboard had been pulled apart pretty good on defense, whether it been the portal or whatever. We're a lot more whole right now on defense than we were a year ago. We have obviously a pretty well-known quarterback competition. It's going to be wide open with several guys involved. The best player will win the job. Last year, like the start of our conversation, nobody knew how to say Darian Mintz's last name when I got here. Like, I got it in the building, and the first couple weeks of the job, I heard more people call him Mensah. Well, that's not how you say his name. It's Mensah. So who will win the job? The guy that earns it. And I'm excited about watching the guys compete. I love the offseason. I really like February is fun to me because that's where it's a dead period. No recruits are allowed to come on campus. We can't go see recruits. I'm solely focused on the guys that are on our campus right now and developing this team every day. And some of that's through some shared sacrifice of early morning team runs and seeing who's going to spit the bit and who's going to push a little harder, who's going to go. And so who loves to compete. But I'm really fired up about, all the turnover roster-wise can be scary. It's also sort of like reinvigorating and exciting because I think we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to find out what's going to work for this year. No 2 years is the same. No two teams are the same anymore. Every team is completely new. Your program and culture, your standards don't change, but your roster's in such flux that you have to figure out how fast can we make this thing come together. And being in New Orleans, it's like how do we put it together a good gumbo? You know what I mean? How do we mix it all together to make it the right product? And we'll get there. But I'm fired up to see these guys. Some of the young guys that were here, see them step up, and some of the transfer guys see what they're about and how they kind of fall into the fold.
Coach, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.